Life. It can be hard, am I right? But it can also be so dang beautiful. This is the podcast where we go there, where we talk about those hard things that have happened in our lives, but also the great things too, where we reflect on the lessons that we have learned along the way. Because that's why we're here. It's to learn, it's to grow as spirits, and it's to share what we're learning with each other, so no one has to feel alone on their journey. I'm Tiffany Carson, and this is Hard Beautiful Journey. I almost left a retreat in Costa Rica before it even started. Back in February of 2026, I signed up to go to a retreat hosted by Marin Azoff called Expressions. Marin was a guest on my podcast last year, and after I recorded with her, I was so intrigued about what she was teaching and what she was encouraging people to do with their voices. And if you see behind my wall, if you're watching on YouTube, Use Your Voice is on the wall. It's something that I'm very passionate about and really hope to inspire other people to use their voice. So when I saw her retreat called Expressions come up, I knew I needed to be there. And so I booked it. And let's just say this retreat was no spa. It was no vacay. Not even close. It was an expedition that went so many layers deep. Before I went to Costa Rica, I was quite stressed. I'll just say it that way. I was quite stressed. I had just finished in November doing my breathwork and somatic coaching certifications, and it was a lot. That was a lot of time and effort. It was 60 hours each in practicum hours, plus all of the other trainings. And that, as soon as I was done, led into year end at work and a new hire and training and all of that stuff. So let's just say when I got to the airport to leave for Costa Rica, my nervous system was on high alert. It was shot. It was not good. So I knew going there that I was going to need a little bit of time to decompress and just chill a little bit, I guess you could say. Well, let's just say the trip to Costa Rica, the flights and all of that were a little bit crazy. And so when I got there, I was even more anxious. I was even more on high alert. So we get there. We meet at a hotel. There's probably about 10 of us that were going on this shuttle bus from the hotels to the retreat center in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica. And that wasn't the part that gave me anxiety or anything. I like meeting new people now. I actually love it. So meeting the people that were coming on the bus, that was actually really, really great. And they were all so kind and they were all so nice. And so I loved it. We get on the bus and we're driving. Every mile that we went deeper into that jungle, I could feel the panic starting to rise in my body. It started in my stomach, and it just kept coming up and up and up into my chest. And I couldn't quite understand what was going on. Like if you saw what I saw as we were driving into the jungle, you'd think I was batshit crazy because it was stunning, absolutely stunning what we were going into. And yet I was starting to have a panic attack. I was starting to not be able to breathe very much. So I closed my eyes and I tried to sleep. I tried to not think about where we were. I just tried to just say it was overexhaustion. I was tired, you name it. So 4 hours later, so 4 hours into the jungle, we arrived at the retreat center and it was gorgeous, like unbelievably gorgeous. And we had the retreat staff meet us at the gate. They took our luggage to the cottages that we would be staying in. We did a tour of the area of the whole retreat center. It was gorgeous, but I could still feel that I wasn't quite breathing properly. I felt like, wow, this is intense. I know I've been far away from home before, but this feels far away from home, far away from my kids, far away from my family, and I'm in the frickin' jungle. And let's be real, I am scared to death of critters. Like, I just had the worst anxiety about spiders, like massive spiders and snakes and you name it. And there were trees literally everywhere. Literally everywhere. We were in the jungle. There were about 30 people at this retreat, and it was a mixture of men and women. And the first night that we were there, we did what's called a ceremony, opening. What did they call it? I can't remember what they called it. But where we go around the circle and we share why we're there. We bring a loved one into the circle that we want to be there with us. We call in our ancestors, and it was beautiful. I obviously called in my brother, and that made me quite emotional right off the get-go. It was actually interesting. Right before it started, the power went out. So we had to do this by candlelight only, which made it was in Costa Rica at night, it's pitch dark. And so we had this beautiful setting, open air yoga hut with candlelight, and we were all sharing why we were there and bringing in our loved ones and who we wanted there in spirit. So that was beautiful. That was really, really beautiful. We said goodnight. We went back to our own cottages. And if you saw my cottage, I'll show it here. It is so, so cute. And it was a 1 bedroom. I just had it to myself. But let me tell you, it was in the middle of the jungle with trees all around it. And you could barely see it through the trees. And so I think that was, not I think, I know that was playing into a little bit of my anxiety. So the first morning arrives and I make my way up to the kitchen, dining room, hall thing that they had for meals. And I'm excited, like freaking excited for a cup of Costa Rican coffee because I've heard all about it. So delicious. And it's nowhere to be found. And I mean, nowhere to be found. All I see is teas, no coffee. So I asked one of the other people attending the retreat what the bleep is going on. Where is the coffee? And without going into too much details, part of the retreat, you were not allowed to have caffeine if you were participating in this activity. Well, I was not participating in the activity, so I hadn't prepared my body for the lack of caffeine. And if you know me, you know my love, you know my consumption of coffee. It is a lot. So, anywho, we go to our first session, tea in hand, and yeah, I was not happy. And we go and we learn about we find out what we're going to be doing the rest of the week. It was a week-long retreat. It was great. We break for lunch. And my headache, I'm not even going to call it a headache. It was a full-blown migraine. Started almost immediately. And by 2 o'clock, I was in the fetal position, absolute fetal position. Thank goodness they got me some Tylenol and a cold compress, and that helped for sure. But I said, I have to go back to my cabin. I have to go back and just lay down. I'm sorry, but I can't be with the group for the rest of the afternoon. And I went back to my cabin and I laid in there and literally just cried and cried. And I don't know how to explain what was going on, but it was like my body was saying, no, no, you're not supposed to be here. You are not supposed to be here. I just kept feeling, you're not supposed to be here, Tiffany. What are you doing here? I remember texting my sister. I did not want to text my mom and my dad because I knew they would be worried about me being in another country. So I knew my sister would be worried too, let's be real. But I knew that she would be a voice of calm for me. And so I texted her and I was just like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. I think that I need to leave. I think I need to go. I don't know what's going on. My whole body is just revolting against being in this place. I can't explain it. It feels like I can't breathe. And it feels like I'm being suffocated. It feels like the trees are closing in on me. The rest of the afternoon, I stayed in my cabin and stayed underneath the blankets. I couldn't have any sunlight on me. My headache was atrocious. I was also starting to get a really bad chest cold. It was like everything in me was saying, get out, get out. And so I texted Nikki, who was Marin's retreat organizer, and I just said, I think I need to go. I think I need to leave. And she was so wonderful. She came to my cabin and it was dinner time by the time I texted her. And she brought me a meal and she brought me another tea and some more headache medicine. And she talked with me for a while and Marin came as well. And they just sat there and listened. And I cried and it happened to be my mom's birthday on that day. And so I just like, I think I need to go. I don't know what is going on. I've traveled so much in my life by myself that this was really shocking and surprising to me, even of how visceral this reaction was for me, that I needed to go. So they talked to me for a little while longer. They said, have a good sleep, see how you feel in the morning, and then we'll go from there. This was on a Saturday. So I said, okay, I will. I'll just sleep. But as soon as they left, I started Googling to see if I could find a place to go somewhere else in Costa Rica, somewhere along the ocean, somewhere where I could breathe. I felt like if I could see the ocean, if I could see open sky, if I could see open air, that I could stay. And it wasn't like I wanted to go to the ocean because it was more spa-like and I didn't want to do the work. It was literally because I felt like I was claustrophobic, not felt like I was claustrophobic. I couldn't breathe. And no matter how many deep breaths I took, the breath wasn't coming. And it's really interesting because I had just finished taking my breathwork certification 3 months earlier for many, many hours. I knew all the techniques, I knew all the things, and I still couldn't find the breath that I needed to calm myself down and to regulate my nervous system. So then I started beating myself up. You just finished becoming certified in breathwork and you can't even help yourself. What is going on here? It was deflating. I'll just use that word. It was deflating. And so anyway, I managed to sleep that night a little bit, not very much. And when I woke up in the morning, my headache was still there. It was even worse. So I texted Nikki and I just said, can I please have some coffee? I just need like a little bit just to take the edge off of this headache. So one of the staff members brought me some coffee and oh my goodness, it was the best thing that I've ever tasted in my life. But I stayed in my cabin. I didn't leave my cabin. I felt like I couldn't leave my cabin. I was paralyzed with anxiety. I was paralyzed with claustrophobia. I couldn't breathe. So I texted Nikki again. And I just said, Nikki, I think I need to go. Let me back up. I had even contacted a Costa Rican travel agent who started lining up other places for me to go, including transportation from the retreat center to a place along the ocean. I had it all lined up. I hadn't pressed pay yet. I hadn't said, okay, I'm going to go. I thought before I do that, I am going to text Nikki one more time and just let her know that for sure this time I need to get out of here. I need to go. So I did. I texted Nikki and I said, I have to leave. I have to leave. I have transportation coming. They could be here in about 3-4 hours. And what do I need to do in order to leave here? And let's be clear, it wasn't like we were being held hostage in any ways at this retreat. We could come and go as we wanted, but I felt it was the right thing to do to make sure that they were okay with me leaving and all of that. Nikki said, okay, Maren and I are going to come down and bring you another tea, another coffee, and another meal, and let's talk. So they arrive at my cabin and we sat outside this time on my little patio and they just listened. They asked what was going on, to talk to them, to share what I was experiencing. And this is where I know I'm going to get emotional and I can already feel it in my eyes. This is where something beautiful, something very hard, but very beautiful took place. And they asked me to explain or share what I was feeling in my body and where it was coming from in my body. And having just gone through the somatic certification, I knew what they were doing. I knew why it was important. And I had done some of the work already myself on releasing some deep pain that was stuck in my body. I had done the work. I had done some of the work. You're always going to be doing the work, let me be clear. But I had already done some of it. So I knew what they were doing. As I was explaining to Nikki and Maren how the trees were making me feel, which was claustrophobic, how the surroundings, how even the cabin that I was in was making me feel claustrophobic, they started asking gentle questions. Their eyes, their body language, their hearts were on full display as they sat with me and asked me some questions, some that were beautiful, but some that were meant for me to feel some things. And I don't even remember the question that Marin asked me. But after she asked me this question, it was literally like my whole body and soul was transported back to the kitchen on our farm. And my brother was beating the shit out of me in this corner of this kitchen. And I couldn't escape. I couldn't get out of his way. I couldn't get away from his anger. I couldn't. And I just kept screaming and screaming. And in that moment of him doing that, I must have taken a deep breath and held my breath and waited for him to stop. Because when I was in that jungle, sitting across from Marin and Nikki, telling them about this moment in my life that I believe contributed to my feeling of claustrophobia, of being stuck, of being not able to escape, that it stemmed back from that moment of absolute fear, confusion, uncertainty, and being scared. And after I shared this with them, I literally could feel the breath that I had held, that I took in when I was 12 years old. I could feel that breath leave my body. I could feel it leave my entire body after 39 years. And I finally understood what somatic trauma, somatic pain can do to your body and to your soul. It wasn't until I experienced that moment for myself in that setting where I really knew and understood how trauma, how pain, sadness, grief, how it lives in our body and in our cells and in our tissues. And if we don't release it, it can cause some deep, deep lasting pain. After that moment, they invited me to join the rest of the group that had still been meeting, and I felt a little bit not out of place, but like I wasn't connected with the group anymore because I had missed about a day and a half. But they invited me to join them again in another event that was happening. And I'm really glad that I did that. They welcomed me back so beautifully. After that moment, the trees that once felt like they were closing in on me, those trees actually felt like they were giving me a great big hug. And I actually, not kidding, I actually went and hugged a few of them and thanked them for holding me and for protecting me and for helping me breathe even deeper now than I have in 39 years. So yeah, I stayed. And what happened after that is why I needed to stay, why I needed to be there. But before we get to that why, I wanted to share a story with you that I thought was so beautiful and so cool. So if you know my dislike, should I use dislike? Yeah, I don't like birds, okay? I hate birds, actually. I was attacked by a big black goose at a kid farm when I was a child, and ever since then, I have been terrified of birds, especially when they flap their wings. Yeah, no, don't like them. So when this happened to me in Costa Rica, you'd think that I would have lost my sanity and screamed like a schoolgirl, but I didn't. So one afternoon, about 3 days after this story with Marin and Nikki and my brother and the breath that I could finally take, we were in a group setting and we were doing a group meditation. And I was deep in my meditation. And all of a sudden, I could feel a great big eagle flying in to my left. It was flying on my left-hand side, and it flew behind me, and it wrapped its wings around my whole body, and then it laid its head on my shoulder. And it just held me there. This great big eagle, great big wings, and its head on my shoulder. Oh! And I knew it was my brother. If you can see on YouTube, my sister and I both have an eagle tattoo on our arms, and the eagle is always our brother. So that's not the cool part. Well, it's cool. Sorry, brother. It was cool. The cool part was after this meditation, it was time for breakfast. So we go to where we have all of our meals, and I'm sitting and talking to two of my friends, and us three are just quietly talking about what we experienced in our meditations. And I let them know about what I felt, what I saw. They thought it was so beautiful, especially knowing the story about my brother. They thought it was really beautiful symbol that he came to me in that moment. So we go back to the afternoon session, and Patrick, Marin's partner, he's leading us in the start of the afternoon session. And he starts by saying, all right, so this afternoon, we are going to call in eagle energy into this space. And I don't remember what else he said after that, because the three of us were in different spots around the circle, and we're all looking at each other with our jaws down on the floor and just blown away that I had a gigantic eagle come in and wrap its arms around me right before we had this session. And now we're bringing in eagle energy. It was such a beautiful sign for my brother that he was there with me and that I was meant to be in this place at this time, learning the things that I was learning, and with these people, with these beautiful souls that I was experiencing this all with. So why I was there. Again, the retreat topic, it's called expressions. And it was to learn about our voice and how to express ourselves and how to use our voice for a variety of things. But the main thing that we were asked to do before we got to Costa Rica was we were supposed to learn a full song and sing it in front of everybody with no words. You can't go up there with any words, and you need to know all of it. Like, oh my goodness, what have I signed myself up for? Holy crap. So anyway, about a month before leaving for Costa Rica, I was driving to work and thinking like, what song could I sing? I have no idea. I haven't sung in a long time, like really tried to sing. And I was shown with so much clarity the song that I was supposed to sing. And the way that they showed me was interesting. And they is my peeps. If you guys have heard my podcast before, I call them my peeps. They're my angels and guides. Well, my peeps showed me my sister, Denise, and I standing at the kitchen sink and singing Love Can Build a Bridge by the Judds. My sister and I used to sing all the time at the sink when we were doing dishes. And we were positive that we would get called by the Medicine Hat Tigers to sing the national anthem. Like, positive that we were going to get called, and we're still waiting. But one of the other ones that we would sing is Love Can Build a Bridge, amongst many others. But that was the image that I saw from my peeps when I was driving to work. So I started playing the song. I started singing it when I would go to work, and I did learn it, all of the words. And so that was no problem. I knew all the words. Now, back to Costa Rica. Throughout the week, we're learning different techniques to really bring our voice up and out, and it was intense. It was a lot of work, and there was a lot of practicing. So once I was actually comfortable again in the jungle and hugging the trees and sitting by the river, I would go and sit by the very loud river where I knew nobody could hear me, and I sung my song. Here is me practicing my song. You can see it on YouTube, a couple pictures of where I sat while I was singing my song. And thank goodness for the roaring river. Nobody could hear me. And that gave me confidence. And I knew that the trees were my audience, and I was singing to the trees. Here's the thing. I wanted them, my audience, to actually feel the words that I was singing, not just hear them. I wanted to actually have them feel the words that I was singing. That was my goal. Every time I practiced by that river, I wanted them to feel it. So now, 2 days before the retreat is over, we start to actually present our songs. And like I said, there was maybe about 30 of us there. And what Marin does with you is we go up one by one and we sing our song. And then she comes up and coaches us through, where to improve and all of that. And she has this incredible way of teaching each person something different based on how they performed their song. I'm not even kidding. She had a different technique for every single person, and it was so incredible to see. So I watched all of the other retreat participants go up, get their coaching, cheered them on, congratulated them afterwards, gave them hugs, and I could not put my hand up. I could not get up there and do it. I was terrified, like absolutely terrified to get up there and sing this song. Well, I've been doing this podcast now for over 6 years. And I'm used to a microphone now. I'm used to talking. I'm used to using my voice. And yet, when it came to actually getting up there and singing a song to 30 people, my voice said, hell no, you are not doing that. I waited and I waited and I waited. And finally, there was just two of us left. And the other person was more terrified than me. So it ended up being that I had to get up before her. So I walked up to the front of the room, and let's be clear, whenever I have sung before, it has usually been lip syncing. And I usually have a spatula or a whisk or something in my hand to pretend that I'm singing. So I usually have something like this mic in front of me to protect me, I guess, to sit behind, to have something that is blocking me from you. Well, I didn't have any of that. I had none of that in Costa Rica. I stood up there. I didn't even know what to do with my hands. And I took a couple deep breaths. I looked out at all of my new friends and at Marin, and I started singing. I think I did pretty good. Not I think I did pretty good. I know I did pretty good, except near the end. And if you know this song, then you know what I'm talking about. There's a part near the end where what's her face? Winona Judd, where she belts out, keep believing in the power. And I'm not going to do it right now, but let's just say, yeah, she belts out, keep believing in the power. And I could not get that out. Every time I tried, it was a little itty bitty squeak. It'd be a squeak. And so after I was done singing my song, I waited for Marin to come up to the front, and she said I did good. But then she said, "Are you ready to actually believe in the power that you have in your voice?" And I said, I think so. I don't know. I'm scared now. And anyway, she walked me through the coolest experience to really get down deep into my whole core. And by the time we were done, no word of a lie, was belting out just like Winona Judd. And you can see it in the video. I hope to one day see it myself. The absolute joy and shock and just pure amazement at what actually came out of my body when I believed that I could do it, when I believed that I had the power in my voice to do it. And yeah, it was amazing. And Marin, did that with every person there. So, what is the point of this story? Why did I want to tell you about my experience in Costa Rica? Well, again, the theme of this podcast now is, what are we learning? What are we learning from these things that we experience in our lives? Well, one of the lessons that I learned through this retreat, through this trip, was to trust the process, even when it's physically painful. The migraine, the sickness that I got, everything, my whole body was just saying, no, I don't want to be here. And it was betraying me. It was saying no. But it needed to release that breath that I had been holding for that long, for 39 years. It needed to be released there. And that was my whole soul's reason for going on that trip, was to release that breath. Another lesson that I learned is that to use your voice isn't necessarily always just how to use words. At 51, I finally understood that to use your voice is to release things that are trapped in your body, and it's to exhale things that you've been holding on to, things that could have been held on to for decades in your life. It was the jungle that actually helped me understand the truth underneath the words and underneath the breath. Another lesson that I learned is that you're never alone on your journey. You're never alone on your journey. I know that my brother has been with me since he passed. I've felt him all along. But that eagle flying in and wrapping its arms around me, laying its head on my shoulder in one of the most beautiful places, but also a place where I felt deep pain resurface from things that happened between him and I knew that I wasn't alone in that journey. I knew he was there with me and holding me and saying, I'm proud of you for staying. I'm proud of you for moving through this and releasing that breath. And it's where I found even deeper forgiveness for the things that have happened between us in our sibling journey together. And the last thing is just the through line through all of it, that we are here to learn all of these things. All of the things that we do, that we experience, are meant to teach us something, that there's always lessons in everything, including a retreat in Costa Rica. We are meant to experience things that help us understand what we are meant to learn and grow from on a daily basis. I thought I was going to Costa Rica to pick up a skill on how to sing. And I actually came out having released a breath that was held in me for 39 years, which then allowed me to sing with even more purpose. So to close out this episode, I have a question for you. What note are you afraid to hit? What's stuck back in 5th grade or kindergarten? What's something that's been stuck where you've been told to not make waves, to be quiet, to not share something? You don't have to fly to a jungle, and you don't have to sing in front of a group of people to find out what that is. But you do have to be willing to go there, even if it's uncomfortable, even when the process hurts, because that is how you can release some of that pain. If you want to continue thinking about this question and hearing from other people that are exploring it as well, please come join us in the living room. It is our community over on Substack, where we continue these discussions long after the episode is over. I will share more of mine, and I look forward to seeing you in there as well. Before we leave, let's take one more deep breath together. Release all of that hard stuff away. And now go find something to bring you joy or make you laugh. I look forward to connecting with you again next week, and until then, take care.